got these goals that you have for your life, these problems to be solved or these places to reach. And I want to talk a little bit about the ways to use those cards that you started yesterday and a little bit of the detail about that. So I'm going to just do 2 quick mini lecturettes, and then I'm going to give you some time to practice actually manifesting a lot more of the life that you want by writing and then by speaking. So that's where we're headed. First of all, a little bit about what I'm recommending that you do on these cards and that what you do with your future. And that is that when you determine what you want, that's this first power process. When you determine what you want, a lot of people do it like this on the screen. They'll look at their past and see where they've been, and then they'll say, well, not bad. This is where I want to go. So most visioning, most planning is done by looking at where we've been and then optimistically projecting into the future. For example, if we're running a business, we might look at profit up until now and then project that profit into the future. If we're running a nonprofit organization, we might look at people served until now and then project it into the future. If you're looking at your life, you might say, well, here's the amount of fun I've been able to have until now, and here's the fun I want to have in the future. Here's the kind of people I've been able to attract in my life. This is what I want in my future. So we start from what we've had and we project. I think there's an alternative to that. And the alternative is not looking so much to the past, but first of all, taking and erasing that history, which is part of what I asked you to do yesterday. And it's part of what I ask that you continue to do for the next 2 days, is to continue to let go of that past. Let go of even the way you used to look. Let go of the way you used to act. Let go of the job you used to have. Not that you can't take it back, but that you take it back fresh. That you take it back in a new way. That you take it back because it's what you desire, not because it's what you've been doing. The second step after you've erased the history is to design the future. And I'm recommending you design a future that is multidimensional and colorful and far out and dynamic. A future that actually changes. So it's not a future that's solid, that stays in one place. You write down those cards and then you review them, and if you see a card you don't like, you just throw it away. If you see a card that's not quite right, you just erase it a bit and change it. So that future that you're designing is movable, and it is really far out. And that's the kind of far out future that I'm recommending you really work toward, is a future that is far out in terms of time and space and comprehensiveness. The wilder the better, to really take the limits off. Now, does that mean you'll get all of that? No, you won't. You won't get everything that you write down. That's why I'm recommending that you write down everything that would create paradise in your life. And then you write down twice that much, so that you actually create paradise times 2. And then you write down twice that much. So now what you've got are so many cards that if you achieved all those cards, you'd have paradise times 4. Because see, I think you'll only get about 25% of what you ask for. But if you create paradise times 4 and you only get 25% of it, well, who cares? You end up with paradise. So create a lot, create wild, and don't expect to get it all. Of course you won't. And go way out into the future. We talked just a little bit about this yesterday. But start to write cards that are for next year, next decade. Write cards that are in 20 years from now. What do you want in 20 years? What do you want in 50 years? Well, a lot of you will be dead in 50 years. So what do you want in 100 years? Write down what you want in 100 years. Now you'll all be dead. say, well, what's the fun of that? Well, I don't know. The fun of it is that you can start creating what you want for your grandchildren. Start to write down what you want for humanity in 100 years from now, and 200 years from now. Not that you'll do a lot toward that, but wouldn't it be great if part of your life was devoted to creating the life that you want for your grandchildren's grandchildren? It's a great quote on that back wall. It's from the first female chief of the Cherokee Nation. And she says, look forward. Turn what has been done into a better path. If you are a leader, think about the impact of your decisions on 7 generations into the future. Yeah. Now that's about 100 years. And I just want to take that a little further. 500 years. So begin to write what you want, what you vision, what you dream for, way past your death. It's a very enlivening experience to give yourself to something way beyond you. And think far out in terms of comprehensiveness. Don't let anything go by. Plan it all. All right, now the next step in this process is to describe the present. Go ahead and take some time, once you've created that far out future, to highlight where you are now. Tell the truth about where you are now. It's part of that power process number 2 we talked about, which is to make a list of your current strengths and weaknesses. We'll do that in this workshop. Your strengths and your current weaknesses, so that you know what you're working from. Then the last step in this process is to create the mid-range goals from the future backwards. In other words, when you're trying to figure out how to get from where you are to where you want to go, don't go from the present forward. Instead, imagine yourself already in that future that you want. Imagine yourself already in that future that you desire. And then tell the story about how you got there from the future backwards. I know this is a bit abstract. I'll give you an example, and I'll also illustrate it on the computer. So this is what I'm talking about. The way to build a bridge is like this. It's from the future, and you're building back to the present. Now some of you say, well, why would I do that? Well, the why behind it is it releases your creativity. Here's the example. 15 years ago, I said, I want this retreat center where I bring people in from all over the world, in the middle of the Black Hills, where people get to think what they'd never thought. And I stood there and said, well, let's see. Specifically, what would it be? I outlined all the details. I mean, right down to the shape of the rooms and the kind of space. Now, that changed over and over again as the years went on, but I had that in my brain. And then I said, well, how did I get here? Now, I wasn't there yet. I was just imagining being there. I did this in about 1983, and I thought it would take about 20 years. Actually, I thought it would take longer than that, but I pretended I could get it done in 20 years. And I said, well, if I'm going to get it done in 20 years, that would be 2003. Okay, now I'm standing in 2003. I say, how did I get there? Well, I got there by 2001. It was all constructed and we moved in. And then did workshops for a couple of years. Well, let's see, how did we do that? Well, in 1999, we began the construction, hired the contractors, so we'd have 2 full years to build it. Well, how do we do that? Well, in 1998, I finally put the financing together. Wow. Well, what happened before then? Well, I got the land. Got the land in about 1995. Well, how did I do that? Well, I made a bunch of money in 1993 and figured out where the land would be so I could buy it. Well, how did I do that? And I kept stepping back to 1983. Now, did it happen that way? Not at all. But without the plan, there's not the energy and excitement and involvement in other people to manifest that far out future.